Oh, man.
Hurry up, dude. We're live.
And we're live. Here we are. Welcome back to the Ron and John Show, where we
are the Ron and John Show. We're known coast to coast like butter and toast. We can make ISIS surrender or die. We can even make the nerdiest guy look kind of fly. We can sing like we've been drinking all night long, and we can drink like we've been singing all night long. So if you're ever in trouble or you're looking for a good time, don't you delay. Tune into the Ron and John Show. Because me and this Ranger, we lead the way.
Boom!
What's up, brother?
You know, just another fabulous week. Had a great week, actually. A group of us took some vets and some civilians that are near and dear to our hearts up a mountain. We went up to Eagle Peak. Just beautiful views, and you know the part of that type of journey is the suffering, right?
Yeah.
That pain and just kind of digging in. Old Pete Quintanilla came out there. You probably saw him on his one leg summiting up and everything like that. So I think it was just a fantastic weekend. Really digging into that warrior ethos as we talk about.
Yeah.
And digging in there. It was incredible. How was yours?
It was great. You know, just a lot of great things going in our lives, you know, for Sandra and I. But, you know, the key thing I have is my health and my fitness, you know. So we've got Anita Vargo here, my teammate at FitOps, and my teammate Defend. We got a little 8-mile hike in ourselves on Sunday. But we've just been training like beasts, and we're going to talk about some things that I'm doing to continue to keep my health and fitness going at 56 years old.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Something that, you know, we could potentially pass on to our service members and veterans. So you talked about the warrior ethos, and I think, you know, the key thing about the warrior ethos, regardless of what you're doing in life, is the ability to deal with what I call P-SAND.
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 Okay, let's hear this one.
That's pain, suffering, agony, or near-death experiences,
Yes.
overcoming that physically, mentally, and emotionally, and not just surviving, but thriving.
Absolutely.
Kind of like what you guys did on the mountain on Sunday.
Absolutely.
You know? And,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think the more we focus on doing things like that, physically, it'll give us more mental and emotional resilience, and we'll have less challenges in our military and our veteran population with suicide, you know, and other things like that.
Absolutely. You know, and another thing is that, you know, is that really communities, right? When we talk about veterans and the veteran community, we're also talking about integration with the rest of the civilian population. And there's a lot that obviously they can learn from us and from the things that you're going through as a person, as a human. And there's things that, you know, we can also learn from them. And seeing the different styles of what it takes for that warrior mentality, right? Because regardless of who it is, we all innately have it inside of us. But I think as a community, as we come back and integrated, as we're talking about, and still supporting the fight out there, but what's it look like to support that and to continue a fight of that, you know, that PME hard on the outside. And I love it because the physical is really the start of that.
It's the foundation.
It's the foundation, right? It's the core of that.
Yeah. You know, so, hey, folks, welcome to the show. You know, Ron and John Show brought to you by Veterans Lending Group. We are live at Bob Brewery here. And tonight we are starting off our 5-week series on health, wellness, and fitness.
Right.
Not just physical, but mental and emotional.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that we continue to talk about this, because I think the secret, especially for our veterans out there, is the physical part, as you just described, to continue to help us mentally and emotionally. So I'm excited about the next 5 weeks, brother.
I am too, brother. And as well as with that is we still have our Friday morning, 5:30 a.m.
That's right. Every Friday morning, 5:30 a.m. on Zoom, PME Hard PT session. Don't be afraid of a 56-year-old grandfather PTing you, all right?
you do it well.
Yeah.
It's always a good time. So, you know, speaking of all this and how we're pulling it all together, how does this all tie into our guest for this week?
Yeah, so the guy we're bringing in this week is a close personal friend of mine, and he is a well-known professional athlete, you know, a world champion. He's a Hall of Famer, but he's a trainer of world champions, but he's also trained military and law enforcement on the art of self-defense. But he is an advocate for health, wellness, and fitness for all ages, and he is just a tremendous human being.
Nice. And so, and you know him personally, obviously, because he's from
Absolutely,
your hometown.
he's from the Quad Cities, the heart of the country,
right?
Davenport, Bettendorf, Iowa. So, the guy we're bringing in tonight, Ron, is a former UFC champion. He is a trainer of world champions. At one time in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, in there, his gym had 3 UFC world champions. He is a UFC Hall of Famer, just an all-around great person and a true treasure to our nation. Should we bring him out?
Let's bring him out.
Ladies and gentlemen, UFC Hall of Famer and former world champion, Pat Miletich.
Hey.
Pat, how are you?
Good to see
I'm
you,
doing
Pat.
all right. Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
I'm glad the sound is working.
Yes. So how's things back in the homeland there, back in the Quad Cities of Iowa?
It's actually, John, it's incredible. And I always call you sir, but now that you're a civilian, I'll call you John for now. But I have great respect for you, buddy. And, so everything that you've done for this country and, look, Iowa is one of those places where people don't disrespect each other. They don't disrespect the flag. They don't disrespect anything that represents goodness. Here, good is still up, bad is still down. We don't fall for the garbage that's going on, on the coasts and all the other stuff that's going on. But hey, I'm just happy to be here with you guys and support the veterans and the folks that are serving currently. And here I am, buddy.
Hey, so we got to ask. You look like you're getting ready to take your driver's test. You got your seatbelt on and everything. So is this the traveling Pat Miletich here, or what's up, brother?
Well, I mean, I've got a huge crowd at my house, a bunch of kids in my pool, a bunch of parents in my house, and it's loud. So I figured I'd just drive out into the country a little further and sit in my truck and do the show. It makes it a lot easier. I don't have to lock myself in my office, and I'd rather be out here further in the corn silos anyway, buddy.
Yeah. So, Pat, first it's an honor to have you on the show. One of the things that we were talking about is that, that warrior ethos and, what it takes, on the battlefield, off the battlefield, if you're a veteran or if you're a civilian. So my question to you is, when in your career, did that start for you? Did you know that at a young age? Was it a switch that just kind of flicked at a certain time?
Wow. The fact you asked that, I guess I can tell you a story that I've not told many people, but there was, my dad was a disciplinarian, I can tell you, before he left when I was about 9 years old, but I was about 7 years old, and the neighbor the father of my neighbor buddy was teaching us how to shoot pellet guns in the backyard. And my father was an alcoholic, fairly abusive, and I was shooting a pellet gun at the instruction of my neighbor buddy's dad, and he was standing behind the house, so my dad couldn't see him. All my dad saw was me shooting a gun across the backyard of the neighbor's house. And my dad yelled at me and said, get your ass up here. So I went up there and I tried to explain to my dad that, Mr. Fowler was teaching me how to shoot the gun, and my dad didn't want to hear it. He said, bend over the bed, I'm going to beat you with the belt. And I decided at that point that I would not give my dad the satisfaction of one tear coming out of my eye. So my dad beat me with that belt, and I stood up and I looked at him at 7 years old and didn't give him the satisfaction of crying. And I think honestly, to be honest with you, it was that moment. And I thank my dad to this day, even though he left not long after that, for making me who I was. That I looked at him stone-faced and said, I'm not giving you the satisfaction of crying for that because I know I'm right. And I think that was probably the day that the warrior was born.
Wow. Wow, what a great story.
Hey, that's awesome. Hey, so speaking of that, what got you into the fight game? Being in Iowa, everybody's a wrestler, and everything. But what got you in to mixed martial arts?
Well, I mean, a lot of things. I think there was a lot of elements that came together, John, to be honest with you. I was in college. I had decided to go to college to wrestle. And my mother got sick with heart problems, had to leave school. My three older brothers and my sister were all married, had kids, had families of their own, and my mother had heart problems. So I ended up leaving school and went home to take care of her. I was working 3 jobs. I was pouring concrete during the day and then bouncing and bartending at a couple different places at night. And my foreman, the guy that was the head of the concrete company, told me that because he was a black belt in karate, he could crush anyone in the world. And I said, I don't think that's true. And so what he decided to do was tell me that at lunchtime we were going to go out in the field and we were going to fight. And I said, okay, as long as you don't fire me if I win. And so we at lunchtime went out, and I double-legged him. He was a guy from Kentucky, black belt in karate. He threw one kick. I caught the kick, threw him down, slapped him around a little bit. And then he gave me a free pass to go to a kickboxing and karate gym here in town. And so I started doing that. And that's kind of how that progression started. And I actually wasn't going to stay. I took a couple classes that were traditional karate classes, down blocks, up blocks, kicks, and it was kind of cheesy. Then I saw on Friday night that the black belts were sparring, and they were very hardcore. It was a very hardcore karate and kickboxing gym. A lot of very dangerous guys in there who were great strikers. And I said, all right, this makes sense for me. I'll stay and learn how to do this. And so I stuck with it at that point. But that's kind of how it all started, to be honest with you. And then I got into tough man contests, amateur kickboxing, pro kickboxing, and then eventually the UFC came about.
So in the UFC, that journey, I mean, obviously there's fighters all over the world that is the mecca, if you will. How did that start for you? And when you started, did you think that you'd be where you are today? Did you have that mindset, or was it like one fight at a time? How did that path go?
It's interesting. I knew that the sport would explode. It just took very powerful people to get involved. That was the thing. And I knew that, I mean, back when I was jumping on airplanes in the beginning and all of that, it was, why do you have a black eye? And then I would explain why. And then we would have one new fan at a time, right? And it just took for the Fertittas and Dana White and those guys to get involved for things to snowball. And I knew it just took getting powerful people like that involved to finally, get the sport to become somewhat mainstream. Look, it's combatives, right? It's combat sports. It's never going to be acceptable or palatable to everyone, but at least everyone in the world knows what it is now.
So when did you realize that that you were going to be pretty good at this, and before long you're fighting and becoming a world champion? Did at a certain point did it hit you that, wow, I'm pretty good at this now, and I think I can go all the way to be the best in the world?
Well, I mean, I explained it. I explained this on the Joe Rogan show, and there was a moment in my life where I painted myself into a corner, John. And there was I grew up in a house where my father had left, I think, when I was 8. My mother worked overtime to take care of things, and the foundation leaked every time it rained. It was 4 inches, 5 inches of water in the basement where my bedroom was. And I woke up one day after I had left college to take care of my mother. And I woke up and I put my feet down on the floor, and there was probably 5 inches of water there. And I said, this is not my destiny. This is where things change. And I had already been fighting kickboxing. I had won a United States Muay Thai title. And the UFC had started, and I had started training toward my goal of becoming a champion. But like I said, I've explained this on Joe Rogan's show, but I haven't explained it to everybody. But I loaded a 9mm, and I put a round in the chamber, and I put it in my sock drawer on the top level of my dresser. And I said, if I don't win a world title, that round's going in my head. And that was my way at the time of desperation, of just saying, I'm not going to accept failure. I'm just not going to. Now, do I say that speech or that part of the speech at high school or college speeches? Actually, absolutely not. At corporate speeches, I do. And I explain that level of commitment, but I didn't give myself an option. I just wouldn't at that point. And so that gun stayed in my sock drawer until I won the world title. And then I went home and I unloaded that gun, and I shed a few tears at that point.
Wow. I mean, what a powerful story, and thanks for sharing that. And, especially to, in this community where that is a topic, suicide, and, and everyone has their different motives, reasons, and a lot of that, as we start to learn as veterans, when we're, learning about ourselves and our TBI and PTSD and a lot of those things that bother us, but we understand that a lot of it came from childhood, and as we were growing up and going through life. Were you, when you loaded that round and put that in there, was it a position where you're like, you know what, I'm tired of this shit, and if I don't get to this level, because of your past, or was it just a mindset moving forward?
Well, I think it was a commitment that, you have to understand that, two of my idols, my two oldest brothers, had already committed suicide, right?
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
For me, those were guys that, one was an Air Force pilot and a CEO of a corporation, and the other one was a millionaire by age 23, and that's a guy that left school at 16 years of age and made himself a multimillionaire legally, working his ass off. But the thing that I learned later on in talking to those guys before they committed suicide, that they were both molested by Catholic priests. And luckily I was a lot younger than them, so I never fell victim to that. But I saw what it did to my mother. So for me, everything was about making my mother smile again. That's all I cared about. So no matter what, I gave myself no option but to win a world title and fly my mom all over the world to watch me fight, to be proud of what she had done. And my mother was a great woman. She took care of all of us when my father had left, worked overtime. She was a nursing director, board of director on a major hospital here in the Quad Cities, and busted her ass to make sure we had what we wanted. And so I wanted to make sure, that my mother smiled again at what she had accomplished.
Wow. Incredible.
So, Pat, one of the things I talk to troops all the time about, and our veterans, is, in order to be successful, and I call it my formula for striving for excellence, and you have to dream big first. Mm-hmm. You have to think, what do you want to do with your life, and kind of dream about that. You have to set lofty but attainable goals. You have to visualize reaching those goals and what it looks like, and then go out and actualize it through a plan of action that will get you to striving for excellence. So here you are, you're a world champion, you're on top of the world, and then you decide to open up your own, not only your own gym, but your own fighting system, Militich Fighting Systems, that started producing world champions left and right. And, we during the intro, Ron and I talked about, you had Jens Pulver, you had Matt Hughes, you had Tim Sylvia, all of these UFC champions. So as you were fighting and all of a sudden started becoming a coach, how did you get to this point where the MFS system and your gym was the #1 gym in the early 2000s, mid 2000s in the UFC? How did it get to there?
Well, honestly, John, I followed the Dan Gable mentality. I mean, as a little kid, I idolized Dan Gable. I watched every documentary. I read every book. I knew everything about Dan Gable that anybody could know. And his work ethic is what carried over with me of, I don't think he ever considered himself a great athlete, which I never considered myself a great athlete, but I knew that I could outwork everybody. That was one thing. That was the only thing that I knew I could do. And so that was something that I did my best to instill in everybody. And what Gable had done was start with a small snowball, and the people that could handle his level of training and his level of work ethic, that snowball would get bigger, and it would collect more people like that. And that's what I did. And I was not considered a nice person back then. I had a lot of letters that were written to me, and a lot of people who would never say it to my face, but would say, you're sadistic, you're cruel, you're this, you're that. But what I was doing was I was weeding out the people that didn't belong in the cage. And I got rid of them, just like a bud's training, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the way it was. And I was that way from the very beginning. But then, even when I was a UFC champion, I was a special guest at a show in Chicago, a kickboxing event where a kid died. He was not trained correctly. He was not conditioned correctly, and I watched him die. And I was one of the people that climbed in the ring as a special guest who didn't know any of the fighters. I didn't know anybody, but I was one of the people that climbed in the cage or in the ring that recognized he was in trouble and gave him CPR with some volunteer firemen and tried to save him. And it reinforced why I was doing what I was doing. And so whenever somebody would criticize me for how harsh my training was, I would remind them that I was weeding out the people that didn't belong in that sport. That I never wanted to go to somebody's wife or parents and say, I'm sorry I didn't train your son or your husband correctly, and now he's dead or he's permanently injured, things like that. So I was a stickler for that, and I didn't want anybody who didn't belong. I didn't want anybody who didn't belong.
Wow, that it's it just draws so many parallels to military.
Absolutely.
I mean, everything that you're saying. From weeding them out, iron sharpens iron, of course, and
right.
Getting to the point to where you're producing these champions, and it's very much like I'm thinking of a squad when you get to their first unit. You're putting it through the paces. And you're raising leaders as well, right? In this case, world champions. And so as you're training all of these other champions, I mean, you're already there yourself. What does that feel like for you? Because we call that leadership, right? And it's no different than what you're providing there. But what does that feel like when you see these young men who come in, just not polished, and then you put them in the ring, and then they take off with their career in their own way? I mean, what kind of feeling is that for you?
Well, I mean, it was a lot more satisfying. I mean, I was happy to win a world title, trust me, but. It allowed me to unload a 9mm, but seeing Matt Hughes, Jens Pulver, Tim Sylvia, Dave Monet, Rich Franklin, even Mark Coleman after he had the slump, and then we took him over to. He asked me to train him and took him over to Japan, and he won the Pride Grand Prix. We put. I'm trying to think. At least over 90 kids into televised careers. I mean that. It's pretty satisfying to help people realize their dreams, and that's it's far more satisfying than doing it yourself. But I guess knowing the roadmap of how to do it is pretty important. You guys have been through the ringer militarily and then been leaders and stuff, and people are going to listen to you when you've been through it, right? So if I said, all right, here's what we're doing, we're going to spar 15 rounds tonight, and then we're going to go to the hill, which is an eighth of a mile hill, and we're going to run it 15 times. And I ran it with them. They're gonna run it with you. They're going to do it, right? Because they know you've been there, number one, and then you're doing it with them. and that's something that, John's always, something I've always noticed about John is he's always training with everyone. He's torturing everyone, but he's doing the torturous workout with them. And look, that's leadership, man.
Yeah. Throwing yourself into it.
Hey, so speaking of leadership, on the 18th of July, I was so proud to call myself a Quad Cityan when you and Michael Nunn got in the ring and fought. You have a place in my heart. Michael Nunn has a place in my heart, more than being at one time the #1 boxer in the world and a world champion. I knew Michael Nunn as someone that used to go rabbit hunting with my dad. And so, he would show up at the house and they'd say, hey, this guy's a world champion and everything. I was like, oh, okay. He's going to clean his gun just like everybody else, okay? But right. To see you two, so kind of talk us through, both of you guys, former world champions, you decided to do this fight and you called it the Fight to Unite. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, Michael and I have the same attorney, Ron May, who's a great guy, been very helpful with both of our careers. And, I was meeting with Ron May over corporate stuff that I was dealing with, and he was talking to me about Michael. And I said, how's Michael doing? And he said, well, he wants to fight again. And I said, well, hell, maybe he and I should do an event together. And I wasn't necessarily suggesting that I fight Mike. I never put myself in the same class, certainly even remotely boxing as Michael Nunn. But, we thought we'd do some sort of event, and then it kind of blossomed into Michael and I actually competing against each other. And Michael said, yeah, I'll let him kick. And really, ultimately, to be honest with you, John, it was more about helping him get his name out there, number one, back out there. And then I was launching an internet pay-per-view company. But as it progressed with this COVID shutdown and everything else, it was more about getting people out, the public out, to understand what their freedoms are supposed to look like, right? To be an American. Yeah. And something that's bothered me from the very beginning of this whole thing is that somehow Americans have translated that their life, and of course we want people to be safe. We want the elderly and those who are, immune compromised to be safe. But at some point, my whole point was we still need to be free, right? And we still need
Absolutely. Yes.
We need to let the politicians know that we're going to go ahead and take back our freedom when we decide to, because power is an illusion. The politicians' power is absolutely 100% an illusion. We only give them as much power as they have. So when we decide to take it back, they no longer have power. So that was my whole goal, was to do an event. Michael and I get out there and let a lot of young fighters get a chance on a pay-per-view setting to be seen and take our freedom back. And that was really what it was about. And so it was about freedom. It really was. It was about our freedoms and about deciding that when we decide that we will be free, we're going to go ahead and do it. And I won't detail it, but I can tell you that the powers that be tried to shut it down about 2 weeks early, 2 weeks before the event. Yeah. And I let word get out that I had a couple people that owned 1,500-acre farms that were going to allow me to do it on their farms. And I said, if the powers that be want to make themselves irrelevant in all of this, we'll do it on those farms, one of those farms, and nobody's going to be allowed on that property to shut it down. And we'll go ahead and do it without you, and you can make yourself irrelevant. And once word got back to them that I wasn't going to back down, the powers that be said, all right, we're going to let you do it. And that's the power that American people have that they don't understand that they have.
Wow. Yeah. Incredible. And just to see, just two former champions in the ring together. I mean that it was we were.
Well, look,
we were there.
hey, I mean, I'll be honest with you, dude. I watched, Michael and I have known each other for a lot of years. I mean, I was in Pena's boxing gym training down there when I was doing kickboxing and watching him and Antoine Eccles and, Levon McGowan, Langby McGowan, Jayoma McGowan, a lot of very, very, I mean, they had the best amateur kickboxing or amateur boxing team in the country at the time, back in those days. And those, I mean, you talk about scary. I donated blood for probably 4 years straight before I could ever even remotely hang with anyone in that gym. So, but the thing is that, Michael and I had talked, we're good friends, and we had lunch together several times leading up to the event. And, the thing was that we both understood we were going to light each other up. And we were going to, show the world that at above 50 years old, we can still wreck shop. But it wasn't about, I wasn't there to put Michael Nunn in the hospital,
Right.
Yeah. And he understood. He hit me with some blazing punches. I can tell you that. But it's nice to know that when Michael Nunn hits you with a 10-punch flurry, you can still stay on your feet. Because he is, dude, I'm telling you, people don't realize, people have no understanding. I've fought a lot of world-class kickboxers. I've sparred with a lot of world-class boxers, and I've fought a lot of world-class MMA guys. People have no clue what it's like to be in the ring with Michael Nunn, and I wanted to experience that. And the only time I saw his jab was when it was going back. And that's at mid-50s, dude. Imagine him at 30 years old.
Oh God! I mean, the one thing that when John and I were watching, because we were standing, right there, but just that laser focus in his eyes. I mean, was that somewhat intimidating, or is that something you're used to? But
no, dude, no, because well, here's the thing. Look, I've never been hurt with a punch or a kick to the head. Maybe it's my Croatian dome, whatever it is. But I mean, I've never been hurt with a punch or a kick. And he hit me with some beautiful shots, and I knew I wasn't going to get hurt at that point.
Yeah.
So to me, I was just having fun, smiling, having a good time, and the look he gave me though, he was not happy when I kicked his legs out from underneath.
I was going to say, you kicked the shit out of him.
Yeah. He looked up at me, and he was a little surprised by that, but I backed off a little bit at that point because he's a boxer. His legs are not used to that stuff, and look, we were there to entertain. Period.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, so we Ron and I watched the fight, and we saw, and he didn't like those leg kicks at all. But let me ask you this: how surprised would you have been if he would have tried to kick you?
Oh, I expected it, 100%.
Oh, really?
I expected it. Yeah, I was surprised he didn't throw a kick. But had he thrown a kick, then I probably would have opened up a little more.
But hey, folks, we're here at Fob Brewery. How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
We have UFC Hall of Famer, former world champion Pat Miletich on the screen. Get your questions ready. We're going to get you an opportunity to ask this Hall of Famer a question if you like. Also, somebody's going to walk away with an entrenching tool tonight and some eye protection here. So more to follow here. So Pat, you've been a trainer of fighters your whole life, but you also have done a lot with the military and law enforcement in terms of training them on self-defense. How satisfying is that, knowing that you're adding to the security of our nation in terms of training people like that?
To be honest with you, I mean, one of the most rewarding moments, probably the most rewarding moment I've ever had in my life, as far as besides the birth of my children and everything like that, is I won't say his name. He probably doesn't want his name given out, but I've been lucky enough to work with, a lot of special forces guys, a lot of infantry, tier 1 operators, all these different groups. But I had a team leader, SEAL Team 6 team leader, who sent me an American flag that was rolled up in his backpack on the mission with a letter wrapped around it. And it talked about the mission and the hand-to-hand combat situation that he ran into. And he said that my training saved his life, and that's something. Wow. And I've had a lot of those conversations with law enforcement and military folks and stuff. And, I mean, I really don't know how much more important that gets than somebody going, I remembered the training and it worked, and that's all that matters. You know what I mean? And for law enforcement, unfortunately, in this country right now, they are the target of every cell phone camera. They're the target of every politician. Yeah. They're the target of every negative group that could possibly. Law enforcement needs to understand that the vast majority of Americans support them 100%. Do not get down on yourself. Talk to your neighbor. Talk to me. Talk to John. Talk to anybody, and we'll let you know that you are 100% supported. That I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement in any battle that happens anytime, and gladly. I mean, I'll just be honest, kick the shit out of a lot of people if we have to, to protect those guys. And that's something that I've always been adamant about, and there's a few bad apples out there who have painted a negative picture, and the media is always going to clutch onto those moments and paint a bad picture for whatever reasons. Non-political discussion that I won't go into because I don't like to do that on these types of shows. But we know that the media is there for one reason, and that is to cause dissension and division. Yeah. And everybody needs to see past that, no matter what your religion, your color, whatever it is. Cops become cops because they want to do good things in life. They don't set out to kill people. They don't set out to do bad things. There are a couple bad cops out there now and then that need to get weeded out, but ultimately it's really about teaching them. I don't know how to put this. I can tell you that over the years of 25 years of training law enforcement, I've seen a deliberate destruction of law enforcement. I've seen the lowering of hiring standards. I've seen the lowering of budgets for training. You take somebody that's not physically or mentally ready to go into that type of situation, and then give them no training because of budgets being cut, and you're deliberately setting the stage for what we're seeing now, right? Yeah. And that's what's happened. I've chronicled it. I've talked about it on my podcast for many years, what was happening. And so people need to wake up. Americans need to wake up and understand that cops are under a massive amount of stress, and they're being targeted, and citizens need to stand up for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I have a question here, and obviously there's no holds barred on this show, and not to push it political, but one thing that I saw, or that rang true to me about you and with John, coming from the same hometown and everything, and you've seen this show, right? Or at least the past episodes of some of our guests. Sure. And it's all branches. It's all nationalities. I mean, it could be a bowl of gumbo, if you will. When you were having the fight with Nunn, I said, man, did they know each other? And John's like, oh yeah, I mean, we grew up the same town, this, that, and the other. And then here you are talking about, training in these gyms and things like that. So, I mean, for those that don't understand and know Iowa, who might have a different picture of that, but can you describe that relationship of y'all's upbringing? I mean, it sounds like it was y'all are all friends. I mean, great friends, hunting buddies and stuff like that, and that's something. It's a rare glimpse that when people don't when they hear something like that, they think, nowadays sometimes maybe, well, why?
Well,
but
I mean,
they don't understand
look,
that township and that small town.
yeah,
and how,
dude. I've got so many friends from around the country, around the world. They don't understand the Iowa mentality. We don't play that race game, dude. We play the character game, the morals game. That's all we play here. So, people have to understand that, as a kindergartner and first grader, whatever it was, I was doing just down the road from my mom's house was the Bettendorf Mansion, right? So I grew up in Bettendorf, Iowa. Well, the Bettendorf Mansion is just down the road from me. Well, the Bettendorf Mansion was the receiving area for the Underground Railroad off the Mississippi River. There was a tunnel built from the Mississippi River through the hillside up into the Bettendorf Mansion, and Mr. Bettendorf was receiving freed slaves from down south that they were ferrying up from down south and escaped slaves, right? So that's something that was ingrained in me from a very early age. And I, more than anything else, I think through the combat world, combat sports, you guys grew up in the military as young men into, adults and then later on in life. Color doesn't play. Why would skin pigment play a part in me judging someone? It just never played a part. I don't give a shit. So for me, I ridiculed anyone who was loafing. I praised anyone who was doing the right thing. I don't care. I never looked at that. I actually, okay. All right. You can call me a racist on this one. I would ridicule black guys who didn't have rhythm. Okay, I would. I did do that. I did do that. I was like, how the F can you be black and not have rhythm? Right?
Yeah.
Like this is pissing me off here. Right? But that's the only time you can call me a racist. Right? But so for me in Iowa and the just the way we grew up in Iowa, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Like either you're a stand-up guy or you're not. I don't care. There's and if you're not a stand-up guy, you're gonna catch shit from me, and that's the way it is. And that's why I joked around and said that's very Caucasian of you, or even my black friends, I'll go, that's very black of you, and people will freak out. They're like, dude, what is wrong with you? And I'll look at them and go, I really don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. I don't have any barriers. Nobody gets a free pass. I will harass you no matter who you are, what you've done, what your background is. And if you deserve it, you're going to get your ass chewed. And if you're doing the right thing, I'll praise you and tell you you're a great guy.
Yeah.
So, Vic, can you pull up Robert Couture's message there? So, I don't know. He put Colton on there. He's talking about Colton Smith, another guy from Iowa. But he's from Ankeny, which is nowhere near where you and I are, Pat. But he wants to know what's in the water over here. Where's the work ethic come from? It's definitely not the maid rights, but I think you just kind of explained that right there, Pat.
Well, it's growing up in the blue collar river towns. It's the farm mentality. It's the cutting nobody slack. If you're not if you're not pulling your weight, then you get kicked to the curb, man. You either hold your own or you're done. Like, you're done. Go do something else. And that's kind of the mentality here. It's just, and that's the way I've always done, especially like in training, special forces groups and things like that I've done over the years. There's no speeches that have to be given. There's just, everybody's high speed. Everybody wants to kick ass and everybody wants to do their thing. But in all the years of law enforcement training, you'll have guys who just get nominated by their chief as the defensive tactics instructor, who's never been in a fight in his life. He doesn't know anything. And he shows up at my class, and I'll go, this guy doesn't know his left foot from his right. He just doesn't understand anything. But the speech that I've given numerous times is, listen, in this world, there is no coming down to the lowest common denominator. We will do this move, this technique, and this concept, and help you understand it until you get it. And I don't look at one person. I just give the speech to everyone and say, everyone will get this until we move on. We will not dumb this down for the lowest common denominator. Ever, ever, ever. I will never do that. And you either suck it up and do it or get out of the business. Get out of the business because you don't belong. And there's a lot of people that, you know, lowering hiring standards, in my mind, has created a situation that there are a lot of people in law enforcement that do not belong, that cannot, they will not survive when somebody tries to take their weapon's going to get taken. You better do the training, because your badge and your gun do not protect you from somebody who wants to kill you, who's truly committed. And so, it's all about, you guys understand that level of that mentality of being more committed than anyone could ever be to killing the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always had, for whatever reason, whether it was beat into me by my big brothers or my dad or however it worked out. But I've always had more commitment than anyone else in situations, and that's why I'm sitting here talking to you.
Yeah. Awesome. So I got a question here is because in every show, you always talk about transition, right? What was that transition like for you as a fighter, world champion, coach, training all these guys up? I mean, what is the number one? What was that transition from being a fighter into a coach? What was that like? Was that a struggle for you? And what is the future for Pat Miletich?
Well, I mean, the transition happened very, very early, actually. So for me, for those that have seen the movie Slapshot, you seen that? Yeah. So I was Paul Newman in Slapshot for my entire career, right? So I was dealing with everything Paul Newman dealt with. I had the Hanson brothers, right? It was Jeremy Horn, Jens Pulver, Matt Hughes, Rory Markham, Mike Cisnelevich, Tim Sylvia. They were my Hanson brothers, right? So it was constant doing that. But certainly it was a learning experience. But for me, it was a great experience. Burning the candle at both ends. But one thing that I learned was, more than anything else, was be careful about how you burn that candle at both ends, because I was a million miles an hour all the time for well over a decade, and it kind of burned me out. It really did. I mean, I was the highs and lows, that bipolar existence can get you, right? And it's probably the same to a certain extent of guys that go into battle. They go into the theater, outside the wire, engage in battle, then come back in and go back out and come back in and go back. It's that bipolar existence that can really mess you up, and you get addicted to that adrenaline and that intensity and that camaraderie and everything else. And then boom, like in the snap of a finger, when for veterans, who suddenly are no longer going in the theater, it's all just taken away. And I for me, it's kind of an important story for people to understand. For like 4 years, I was trying to get out of coaching. I was desperately trying to get out of coaching because I was working 3 network jobs. I was working for Showtime Sports, ESPN, and Mark Cuban's Access TV. I had the law enforcement military training company. I had the gym. I was training fighters. All this stuff was going on at the same time. And for 4 years, I was trying to clean my plate of coaching. And the last show of the year, whatever year it was, I don't even remember. I've never kept track of chronological order. I don't keep track of dates. I don't keep track of dates of when people die or anything like that. I just never have. Probably a protection mechanism, whatever I have. But I did a show with Brian Stan, who I respect gratefully. We did an ESPN show. Last show before the holidays, Christmas holiday. And after the show, we got in a car service that was taking us to the airport out there in Connecticut. And I was talking to my daughters on speakerphone when they were much younger, probably 6 and 8 years old at the time, and said that I would be home late tonight, and I'm looking forward to making them breakfast in the morning and spending time with them. I got off the phone with him, said, I love you. And Brian Stann looked at me. And this is after 4 years of me trying to get out of coaching and looking for that moment to tell me to get out of it. And I got off the phone with him, and Brian Stann looked at me and he goes, I've got 2 daughters also. And he goes, you know, Pat, I've killed a lot of people. And he said, in every firefight I've ever been in, I always wondered what the meaning of life was as explosions were going off and bullets bouncing off Heskew and rocks and everything around me. And he goes, I finally came to the conclusion that the greatest thing a man could ever do was raise his kids the right way and get them off on the right foot.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't even remotely tell you how emotional his words were at that time, but I can tell you that I turned away from him because I started to cry. I looked out the window of the car, and when I told that story to the first reporter that I talked to who asked me that question and why I retired, he went back and he called Brian Stann and he said, Brian, do you realize that your conversation was why Pat Miletich retired from coaching? And he goes, you know, that's crazy, because when I said that to him and he looked away from me, he instantly thought, holy shit, Pat Miletich thinks I'm crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that at all. It was literally like God's message going, dude, you got to get out. You got to get out. And that was the moment I went home before I went on a 2-week vacation to Florida with my kids and my wife. And I gathered all the fighters at the gym. I said, everybody be at the gym the next day. And I told them all that I'm done. I'm done coaching. I'm retired. I'm walking away. Find a new team. And that's when everybody found a new team. And that was an emotional moment, I can tell you. It really was. But Brian Stann, as much as I respect him, his words were what shook me loose. It finally shook me loose from coaching.
Yeah, former Marine, Silver Star recipient, true warrior.
Yeah, I got great respect for him.
How about what we got Pat on? Let's give away this entrenching tool here.
Let's do it. I agree.
Hey, brother, come on up. Yeah, you, man, come on. Hey, we thanks for being here first, but come on around here. Okay, in order to get this entrenching tool, you got to come over here.
Okay.
And you got to ask this UFC Hall of Famer a question here, man.
All right, my question after sitting here, first of all, thank you for being on with these 2 wonderful Patriots, is what do you think the foundation is for these up-and-coming fighters from where you were and, you know, now as a Hall of Famer for them?
Gosh, you know, I don't know. The foundation has been varied, right? You know, you've got your blue chippers who are Olympic level wrestlers who have work ethic, but I think most of all, it has to come from passion, that there is nothing they want more in life than to be a world champion. And the guys that can put the blinders on and get rid of everyone in their life who's a distraction, right? That's really what it comes down to. Is that's the only way I won a world title, was to get rid of everyone in my life who wasn't on the same mission, brother.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that answer.
Well, hey, on behalf of the Ron and John Show, Ron, I'll let you.
Absolutely.
Here's your entrenching tool, and let me give you one of my SEAC baseball cards to go with it. All right, brother?
Thanks a lot.
All right, let's give him a hand, all right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Hey, Justin, come on up.
Oh, yeah. But you know you're going to have to take your hat off when you come up here, right?
So this is
Kramer.
This is a little Kramer here, all right? What's up, brother? There's such a question for this world champion, this Hall of Famer here.
How did you, I missed the first part, but how did you get started into fighting in that whole kind of world? Like, what was your motivation behind getting into MMA?
Well, I mean, I'll tell this story because it's in the book, I think. I went for wrestling tryouts in kindergarten. And back then we wore white T-shirts and white gym trunks and Converse basketball shoes to wrestling practice, right? But leaving practice, I got in an argument with another guy who was in kindergarten. And he was a little bit bigger than me. and he said to me, he said, "Do you want a fist fight or do you want to wrestle?" And I thought, I've never been in a fist fight. I just learned how to wrestle a little bit. We should probably wrestle. And he took me down. He slapped me around a little bit. And it was the middle school's wrestling coach's son, John McCutcheon, who was the first guy that beat me up. And I said, at that point, after he looked at me and he said, "You're stuck," was the term back then, meaning you got pinned, right? At that point, I realized that I should probably get pretty good at wrestling. So that probably started the process.
That's awesome.
Here you go, brother. Well, here's a set of iPro for you and a baseball card.
Oh, thank you.
Give it up to
Appreciate
Dustin,
that.
ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Kathy, come on up. Come on, Kathy. You got to ask this world champion and this Hall of Famer a question. Ask it anything. Come on up, dear.
Oh my goodness. Put me on the spot. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Congratulations. I'm good. How about you?
Good, thank
watched
you.
this fight Saturday, wasn't you?
Yes, I did watch the fight Saturday.
Well, thank you for watching. I appreciate that.
How was it being out there in that heat and fighting like that?
You know, it was very hot, and I enjoyed getting punched in the face by a guy that was the pound-for-pound best boxer in the world for 4 years.
Well, we were definitely concerned about the weather out there and fighting in the heat. Hadn't seen a fight like that in a really long time.
That's a good cleansing. It's a good cleansing.
Well, hey, thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thank
Give
you.
it to Kathy. Hey, should we hit him with some rapid fire now?
Let's hit him with the rapid fire.
Okay, so first of all, you know, I'm actually proud of you now, Pat. Rapid fire is where we go kind of get off the subject and kind of hit you a little bit with something. You're a guy that has been successful your whole life. You've been just a mentor to a lot of people, me included. But for the longest time, I think you finally got your reading glasses, a new pair of reading glasses. But forever you had this pair of reading glasses that only had one arm. What was up with that, brother?
That was about 4 pair of reading glasses with one arm, because if they if they still work, why would I get rid of them?
Right.
Good point.
I finally broke the one remaining arm on all of them, and had to get this pair. So
Awesome.
All right, so
Go ahead.
now you know, I saw the Fight to Unite and everything, and you know, you've probably already seen Mike Tyson training here for I think he's fighting
Roy Jones
Jr. coming up. Now, would you rather take a punch from Iron Mike Tyson or Roy Jones Jr.? Just one.
Roy Jones by far. Roy Jones by far. I would gladly take a punch from Roy Jones.
Now, I know you said that you could take a punch. I mean, does that mean that Iron Mike, he gets one punch? I mean, what's going to happen there?
Well, let's put it this way. I've never been knocked out, and I've sparred with a lot of heavyweights, but I do not want to get punched by Mike. I do not want to get punched by Mike.
Hey, so my other rapid fire question is, you know, so you have an option here. Would you rather go 5 rounds in a cage with Colton Smith, you know, fellow Iowan, or go hunting with Dick Cheney?
That's a good one. Well, look, I know I'll survive 5 rounds with Colton Smith.
You know, I don't know about getting a shotgun blast to the face, though. You know, I mean,
That's why I said Colton Smith all the way, buddy.
Oh man! So you know, I got a off total. I'm going to switch my last question up because one question that John Wayne Troxel always loves to ask somebody is if they can kick someone's ass, and the response it better be something positive. So my question is actually for John. Do you think that you could kick Pac's ass?
fuck no. No. Hey, I don't even know that I can outrun him either, because this guy is a guy that has trained for the Leadville 100 miles of running. Okay. And he's trained so hard that sometimes at mile 22, he's laying in a farmer's cornfield, I mean, trying to get ready to finish off the other 78 miles. No, I
can tell you this. I can tell you this. When I used to walk into my gym to teach class or to train the fighters, I would walk in the morning sometimes, and I'd see this crazy bastard hanging off the I-beam that supported all the heavy bags. And he's got a training mask on, and he's looking at his watch on his wrist to see how long he's been hanging there. And it's John Troxel, right? And I'm going, this guy's a fucking lunatic. Like, this guy's hardcore. But that was my first introduction. One of my first introductions to John was like, this guy's just going to hang on this I-beam like all day long, looking at his watch to see how long he can do it. And I'm like, this dude is hardcore.
Hey, so since we're on this subject here, you've helped me a lot in continuing to, the older I get, the ability to stay fit, the ability to kind of, fight off father time a little bit. And you turned me on to something here in the, not too long ago called Black Oxygen Organics and fulvic acid. And it has just worked for me just phenomenally. And can you talk about Black Oxygen a little bit? Because it is just phenomenal. And I'm telling you, my ability to recover, the anti-inflammatory it has in it, the cell replenishment it has in it, my cardio is getting better, and I'm, closer to 60 than I am to 50 now. Can you kind of talk about it a little bit and why you're so passionate about it?
I thank you for bringing that up, first of all, but I can tell you that, I have been contacted, John, by so many veterans over the years who are victims. I call them victims of the VA, and there are a lot of good things about the VA that I'm not going to criticize, but a lot of veterans are, getting hooked on psychotropic drugs and Oxycontins and everything else from the VA, and the suicide rates are through the roof. And, so I have searched and stumbled upon some really good people. Tim James at Chemical, for people, they need to understand, chemicalfreebody.com. Tim James at chemicalfreebody.com. His greens, his gut cleanse, and all that sort of stuff to get your gut
taking
biome
that
correct.
Too because of you.
That it's amazing stuff, and it gets the gut biome correct. Because the gut, if the chemicals and the biome is wrong in the gut, it emits chemicals that cause mental illness and a lot of other stuff that's going on. So people need to understand that your gut brain connection is very important. So chemicalfreebody.com is super important. But stumbling upon and having a friend of mine of 20 years explain Black Oxygen Organics to me, I knew instantly it was the biggest wave in human health recovery, endurance training, and I've never seen anything like it. So those two products put together, but you've got, I've had mothers of autistic children call me and say that their autistic boys are now suddenly talking, okay?
Wow.
Because it's cleaning the metals out of their brain cells and their body. I've got world-class ultra runners who have dropped, up to a minute off of their 30, 40-mile time runs. Imagine dropping 40 minutes off a 30 or 40-mile run with your heart rate staying the same. Diabetics who can get rid of their insulin shots or lower their insulin. Asthmatics who can get rid of their inhalers. People with COPD who are healing. It's totally changed. And the only reason I understand why this works so well is because of my respiratory damage from black mold as a kid growing up in a house that flooded every time it rained. So, for me, when I take this I had just lost a mentor of mine who died in a minor spinal surgery. They screwed up during the surgery and killed the guy who probably was the greatest mentor of my life, David Clark, who went from a 340-pound alcoholic to a 160-pound world-class ultra runner. When I lost him, it caused a lot of problems, stress in my life, because he and I were very close. We were as close as brothers, any brothers could ever be. And I woke up on Memorial Day, and I thought, what would David do today? And I thought, without having done any long-distance running in well over a year, I'm going to run 22 miles for the average of veterans that commit suicide per day. And the only reason I did that was because of David, and also because I had been on black oxygen for about 10 days at the time. And I went out and I ran 11 miles north of my house, and then ran 11 miles back. And I thought, man, I'm going to be crippled tomorrow. I'm going to be, And I woke up the next day and I wasn't really even sore, and I was able to run 5 miles the next day as a recovery run. But what it did was prove to me that this product is probably, without a doubt in my mind, the greatest discovery that I've ever seen in human recovery, in health, and in athletic endurance that I'd ever seen. And it's John, I can't tell you what it's done for you is not a unique story. I mean, I've got friends that are world-class ultra runners. That I've got one guy who's 52 years old who ran, what did he do? He did an 8-mile run the other day. He's been averaging 9-minute miles, and he's a guy that's done the Leadville 100 and all that sort of stuff. 9-minute miles. He's in his 50s, and he decided to start pushing himself the last mile of every run. His last run that he did, I think he did an 8-mile run, but the 8th mile he did in 6 minutes and 17 seconds.
Wow.
And that's at 52 years old. So it's 45% more oxygen at a cellular level. It cleans the toxins and the metals out of your cells. It's the best electrolyte known to man. It's an antiviral. It takes viruses with it when it goes out of your cells. It's nanite in size, so it goes into the cell walls. It activates the mitochondria. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah. So we can help veterans across the board with this stuff. It's insane what it's doing for people of all types of backgrounds.
Can you give us the website for Black Oxygen Organics? Is it blackoxygenorganics.com or? Yeah,
if they want to go, have you signed up as a partner yet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So is it John Troxel at the end of it?
Yeah.
Okay. So they can do blackoxygenorganics.com/John Troxel, and then they can sign up and get the product underneath you and take off, and then we can build an army underneath you, and your co-host should be doing the same thing, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Wait a minute. Is your co-host not even on it yet?
I'm not. I talked to John about it. He was right when he was telling me. He said, "This is the shit. This is what it's supposed to do." But now you
doubted it. And you doubted it.
Well, first of all, I never doubt John. I was very intrigued to see what the results were, because he had just been taking it for a couple of days, I think. But he had already been feeling the results. But now that I know that the Chambers Bay that he's talking about, and that's a no shit Hills.
Look, man, I'm telling you guys, you don't understand. John's story is amazing in itself. But when I get mothers call me crying, bawling their eyes out that their autistic sons are suddenly talking, that's amazing. When asthmatics are telling me that they're breathing perfectly. Boss Rutan called me on Thursday when I was driving to South Dakota. I'm driving to South Dakota, and Boss Rutan calls me and goes, "Dude, you have changed my life. You have changed my life," because he's been asthmatic his whole life. He goes, "I've never experienced anything like this in my life." And it's just simply providing the proper nutrients that actually are supposed to heal the human body. And what people don't understand is that we've grown food in the same soil for so many decades that we've depleted all the minerals out of the soil. So you're eating roughage that has no nutrients left in it. So, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, the book Dead Doctors Don't Lie. When you read that book, you'll understand when he says that men who live in the foothills of the Himalayas, they're fathering children into their 80s and 90s because their bodies are still functioning correctly, because the minerals in the soil in the Himalayan foothills is so rich that it's making the human body operate correctly until that age. So that's what this stuff is. It's totally organic, plant-based. It comes from 60,000-year-old bog mud in Canada, and we've got the same mud technically here in the swamps of the United States, where we're going to expand it. But that's what's happening. And you can use the bog mud, extract the fulvic and humic minerals and acids out of it, and then throw it back in the swamp, and it starts all over again. So you can duplicate it. It can continue. So yeah, you definitely need to get on it.
Yeah. I've been on Black Oxygen Organics for a month. I've been on Chemical Free Body, the whole probiotics routine for a month now. And you and I are getting ready to take the Ron and John show on the road to Goodfellow Air Force Base. And I'm running a PT session at Goodfellow Air Force Base. And the soldiers and airmen down there better get ready, because this 56-year-old grandfather is going to bring a healthy dose of scunion on their asses when we get a PT session in.
Yeah, kick their asses, buddy.
Oh, I'm going to need to jump in. I'm in.
Well, hey, brother, Pat, we're going to have to shut it down now. But, brother, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You are as genuine as anything in this country. You're a true treasure in our nation, and I am just humbled and proud to call you a friend. Thank you for being with us today on the Ron and John Show. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys, and thank you for your service and everything you've done, and all the people in the crowd. Thank you for their service, and hey, don't lose faith, because when we decide to kick some ass, we'll do what we got to do to make things right. How's that?
That's right. And it's the same. I mean, it's an honor, it's a pleasure, and this has been, once again, another great show. But thank you for sharing, pieces of your life and pieces of your heart, especially to our audience. That I feel it's going to resonate very well. I mean, this is something that I look forward to coming back and watching again myself, because not a lot of people get to see the other side of what that warrior has to go through, and to see the parallels. It's just really uncanny. So again, thank you so much. And for
hold on, hey everybody, give it up for Pat Miletich,
yeah,
UFC Hall of Famer, UFC champion here. Ooh.
Yeah. And so for everyone else out there that is watching the Ron and John Show, brought to you by Veterans Lending Group. Remember that we can ETS, PCS, and retire wherever it is that you go. We are licensed in all 50 states, and we are here to get you squared away through education. If you are interested in a refi or a new purchase, visit us at veteranslendinggroup.com. If you're interested in education about your VA home loan benefit, which you should be, since none of us a lot have that education, visit us at vahomeloanbootcamp.com for a regular schedule of all of our education classes. And with that, I'm just going to close it out with you, Pat. What parting message would you like to give to our audience today after this show?
I just that everybody needs to remember that the vast majority of Americans love our country, love our flag, love everything we stand for, love the freedom, love our veterans, love our active military, and don't let the media divide us, man. Don't listen to the media. Turn your TV off. Go out, shake your neighbor's hand, shake your fellow American's hand, and hey, the bankers and the politicians are against us. The elites are against us. Don't let them win, bro.
Yeah.
Thanks,
right,
brother.
Thanks, brother.
God bless
Appreciate you.
All right.
We'll see
Take
y'all
care,
next
guys.
week on the Ron and John Show, brought to you by Veterans Lending Group.
See y'all next Wednesday, 4 p.m.